and thanks for Jewelry Ecomm having me speak today. So yeah, we want to talk about the new jewelry salesperson, your next hire for the digital age. And let me see here. I'm going to see if I can toggle through here. Sorry about that. So when we start talking about hiring, a lot of times we hire for position. And I want to kind of give an example of how at an agency like Fruchtman, we've changed our strategy in terms of how we hire as well. So this sort of came about from a real life experience with us as an agency, as we've tried to adapt to the new digital reality, right? So for example, in our agency, it's common to have a number of different types of people. You have people who work on the digital marketing side in terms of paid search, SEO, those types of things. You have social people, right? People who work on social media and posting and creating content and that kind of thing. You have graphic designers, you have account people, you have media buyers, and so on and so forth. And so one of the things that we identified probably about 2 years ago was that there was a real disconnect between the people that we had hired as graphic designers and the people that we were hiring as social media coordinators, right? And inherently, we discovered that social media coordinators, people that could really do social media and manage social media, that was a trait that there wasn't necessarily a degree for. People either have the aptitude for it or they don't. And what we found is that the trait that you do really need to have experience with and be good at is graphic design. So these social coordinators would have concepts and ideas, and they would want to hire, or they would want to create content. And then a lot of times, just with workload, they were unable to get the content created as quickly as they prefer if they went to a designer. So they would start to do design on their own. And sometimes that turned out well, sometimes it didn't turn out so well. So what we identified was, hey, as we had an opening for a new graphic designer, we decided that we were going to look for someone with a really solid graphic design background, but also have the desire and the ability to manage social media channels. And so we made that hire. It went very well. We were much more streamlined, and I think as a designer, it breaks up your day in order to give you opportunities to do other things to keep you more energized throughout the day and energized about what you're doing at work. And so as that became successful, we eventually moved our entire agency to our graphic designers are in fact the coordinators. So this way we can split up clients through specific graphic designers who know not only the design elements that are typically used for a client, but they can also work on their social media, which makes a lot of sense. So now let's bring that back into how that applies to a jewelry store. So Howard kind of went over a little bit about what we were talking about in terms of how we've been discussing digital media for the past decade or so. But what's really changed, other than the tech behind it, is how we communicate. And so when we start talking about how people communicate, there's a lot of different types of ways that people communicate, but the conversation and the way that people shop online have obviously changed, and everyone's aware of that. But what we don't talk about a lot about is how does that translate in store. So before we get further into talking about the new jewelry salesperson, I want to talk about what are sales anyway, because we have this word sales, and usually it's an intangible thing, right? The obvious thing is somebody's making a purchase, and that's great. But what we don't think about, I think, enough is how do we get people to make a purchase? Now, there's obvious ways, right? You market your business. You have a good salesperson who knows how to sell. We know that closers are the ones that are going to translate and do the ask for the close and make the sale. You can work your book of clients, which includes call downs for shows or, special events or sales or that kind of thing. And all of that is really part of what we've all seen, which is your typical sales funnel. But we really look at the sales funnel as being rather antiquated. And it's time to start identifying how salespeople can become involved in other aspects of the business that directly relate to sales. So we sort of at Fruchtman have a new concept called the sales pie. mostly because pie is better than funnel, and people relate to that, right? So some of the tools have changed, right? And you see all kinds of sales funnels out there, right? They've got, some of them are 6, 7 steps, 10 steps, 12 steps, all these different steps to sales funnel. And it's just very confusing when you start thinking about how do you apply the sales funnel, right? And really, there should be a 3-point sales funnel, or a sales pie as we're calling it, right? So awareness, consideration, and decision. So how does that look? So this is, and I'm going to come back to how this applies to not only salespeople themselves, right, but also other people in your agency or in your store. So how does the sale pie look? So you got awareness, consideration, and decision. You can see consideration is really half of that pie, right? And awareness and decisions are steps in getting to that consideration. So when we look at awareness, right, the obvious things are two things: marketing and referral, right? So salespeople have a direct connection to both those channels, marketing and referral, right? They can participate in marketing, and they should participate in marketing. Salespeople are by default creative types of individuals, right? They're good with people. And so they have a place in marketing, and we're going to go through steps of how they get involved in the marketing that makes your marketing better, and then also makes your results better, which brings better brand awareness. And then also a referral, right? So referral come from many different places. Current customers referring you down, generational referrals, that kind of thing. But also salespeople can be involved in that referral process too, by how they interact with the customer, right? And that goes into the next phase of sales pie, which is consideration. All right. And so when we talk about consideration, there's 2 components of consideration: the relationship and then the experience, right? Everybody likes buying from someone that they like. So good salespeople build relationships, build connections to the people that they're talking with, right? So they have a common ground. They can have a connection on a personal level, and those are usually your best types of salespeople. But then the next step is the experience. And so when you talk about people considering to make a purchase, it's all about their experience. So it's not just the salesperson. Do you have the product, right? Is something happening in the store that's distracting, right? What is their overall experience? Were they expecting, you to offer them water and you didn't offer them water? All these things that are pretty common, in-store visit asks nowadays. Did you do those things? So you have to check off all those marks, and that creates the experience. What's the store look like? What's the flow of the store? Is it comfortable? Those types of things. All these things go into consideration. And then finally, you go into decision. And decision is basically built up of a value for the product and then the close, right? And so those are the three steps to the new sales pie. And so that's important to remember as we start to move through the rest of this presentation. So what do we mean when we say the tools of change? So when we say the tools of change, the same tech that has changed how people shop online has changed, as we mentioned before, how people communicate as well. So for example, email is a good example of how, and it's been around for decades, right? Email's a great example of tech that's been around that people use to communicate, right? You could say that that's almost, in some cases, it's becoming outdated, right? Texting or SMS messaging is becoming more popular, right? So there's things that slowly replace other types of tech that now is becoming old tech, right? Email is still a very powerful tool. We all get our emails every day, from people asking for this or notifying this, or you got points for this. So we all still get those emails. But there's other ways that we communicate, right? We can communicate on our website with, forms, contact us, make an appointment form, contact forms on your contact page, pop-ups that are asking for you to email to get X. And in addition, obviously, people communicate a lot via social media. So you may post some content on social media. Someone may ask, hey, love this piece. How much is the price? All that is the type of the way that people communicate. Before all of this, you would likely pick up the phone, right? Or you would visit the store. And so a lot of people are doing their research and their due diligence online before they even step into the store. But let's go back to email for just 1 second, and look at an example of how tech can create a better customer experience still using email. So, email. Everybody's familiar with email. You get an email, and there's text in there. You read the text, you reply. So, for example, there's another way to communicate to somebody through email, and this is just one example, but it's something called Bonjoro, right? Now, this is something that we have come across when we're working with our clients in terms of how we can create a better customer experience. But instead of just shooting off an email to somebody, what if you could shoot them a personal video and you're actually face to face? Your face is to them, right? They can see you. You could say, "Hey, John, thanks for becoming a customer of so and so Jewelers. We're really happy to have you on board. Wanted to let you know so and so, right, or this and that." And or maybe someone's setting up an appointment, right? And you may call and go, "Hey, John, it's Shane from so and so Jewelers. Look, I know you're coming in a few hours, but I thought I'd give you a screen grab of some of the things that we've got out for you so you can look at." So, depending on what kind of products they were asking about or what they were looking for. And you could shoot video of the products that you've pulled from them, and generates more excitement. They've they've got a face. So when they come in, they see you, right? "Hey, Shane, I'm Johnny. Oh, great. Nice to meet you." So this is another way that you can communicate with them. The way the Bonjoro works, and again, I'm just using Bonjoro as an example, but the way it works is it's an app that lives on your phone. And if I wanted to communicate with someone, I would pick up my phone and I would start the Bonjoro app and I would record my message. If I didn't like my message, I could erase my message, and then I can record it again. And then once I'm happy and I'm good to go with my message, I can then put in the email to who I want to send it to. And then the receiver will actually get an email that says, "Hey, I've got a video message for you. You've got a video message from Shane at so-and-so Jewelers." He opens it up, he clicks it, it opens up the screen, and they watch the video of you having conversation with them. And all that works through the Bonjoro app. It's super easy to do. You don't have to, save your video here and download it here and then save it. It's all through the app. So that's just a good example of how you can take something commonly used like email, and you can create a whole nother level of experience by using something like a video in order to communicate the same type of thing. So Bonjoro, that's an example of that.
Shane, where is that? Where would the videos themselves be hosted? Would they have to be downloaded to the computer of the customer, or do they watch them and they're hosted online?
So Bonjour handles all of it. So and by the way, and you can go to I don't know if I have this. It's just bonjoro.com. So bonjoro.com. It's all managed through the Bonjoro app. So when they click to watch the video, it actually opens it up. Bonjoro is hosting it. You don't have to do anything. It's really easy to use. We've used it many times for good examples. Going to Centurion Howard, we would actually send videos to clients that we wanted to meet with at the show. And so we, again, practice what we're preaching as well. And a lot of times we test out new tech on ourselves before we recommend it to our clients too. So again, now this is directly something coming from a salesperson, right? So this is a tool that not a lot of jewelers are using. And, when we talk about customer service and we talk about customer experience, we all understand what that means. But it's sometimes somewhat surprising how it seems like we've plateaued. We've gotten to a certain level. There's a lot more out there that can be done. Some people do it, some people don't. It's the difference between good salespeople and average salespeople, right? And also, there's a lot that can cause problems based on right age. Younger people are more likely to be comfortable with tech than older people. Not that older people can't become with tech. I am involved with my tech, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore either. So it's just a matter, I think, of embracing new tech. And tech today is really trying to make it as easy as they can, because they understand that there's different levels of users on their platform. So Bonjoro is a good example where they make it super easy. You know what's interesting, and I believe they're still doing this, but when we first signed up for Bonjoro, we signed up and they automatically send you a Bonjoro with a couple people talking to you, welcoming you to Bonjoro. I mean, who would expect that from a big tech company? Not that they're that big of a tech company, but still getting that personal greeting after we signed up was unexpected, even though that's the whole point of Bonjoro in the first place. So we should probably assume that. So that's a good example of a different way to communicate. Now imagine what that makes that customer feel like, right? So wow, this is cool. I now am looking at, I'm not reading text. And you know how sometimes text can have different translation, right? Because we don't have emotion in text. But imagine seeing a smiley, friendly customer or salesperson on the other end welcoming you, getting excited for you to come in. Your potential people that actually come in for your appointments can increase. They, again, as I mentioned, already know what you look like. So when you come in, the greeting is much more personal. All of this creates a better customer experience. So that again, Bonjoro was just an example. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities in tech today. I mean, one of the things that's happened because of COVID is, we've started, a lot of people doing video calls and these kinds of things, and it changed the way that they communicate with their customers as well. So, but going into some other stuff, social media clienteling, right? So social media is another way to clientele. And also to market your store, obviously. But one of the things that you want to remember is that it's not just the store. So some of the top performing salespeople connect to their customers socially. Now I know a particular salesperson who I don't think I should mention on the phone right now or on the call right now, but he has been doing this better part of a decade. So he was definitely an early adopter to using social media to communicate to his customers, right? So for example, if they're having a sale at the store, he'll shoot out on his personal social media, hey all, if you're interested in holiday gifts, give me a buzz. Here, I've got some great ideas. He may show a picture of something that they just got in, etc. And he's been doing this for a long time. And frequently, people will call him and ask him to personal shop for them as well, and he'll send content back via text and those types of things. So think about that when you start thinking about your social media and your salespeople. They have social media as well, and they should in many cases do use that to be able to clientele. And also by doing that, you're creating personal relationships, right? And it's true of anything. The closer a person is to you, the less likely they are to shop elsewhere. And when you do that over time, you have better core customers to your business, and you can build on that base, and that's how you grow sales. So we kind of talked about a lot of the different levels, but it creates a whole nother level of customer service that consumer will experience. Okay, so that's one thing, clienteling, right? But now let's talk about an area that this is where we start talking about parts that maybe aren't typically associated with a salesperson, right? Creating content. So millennials, and it's hard to believe, but millennials are in the range of 25 to 40. So they'll be turning 40 in 2021. And it just seems like yesterday we were talking about millennials being in the bridal age area, around 28 or 30. So time goes by really quick. But millennials are now over 35% of the workforce. So there's a good chance, certainly as time goes on, you're going to be interviewing these people who are ready for real sales jobs that have been in this workforce, have experience. And one of the things they've got experience and they grew up with was tech. Okay, so about content though, regardless, and Howard mentioned this in the beginning, but regardless of whether you work with an agency or not, original content is needed if you really want to push the boundaries of what you can do from a marketing perspective on social media, right? And we're going to show some examples of that. But millennials are super technical. They've got experience in many forms of social content development, including photography and video. I mean, you see that, in things like TikTok and YouTube and all these different channels that they're accustomed to. And in many cases, they've been doing since they were in high school, right? So they're very fluid in understanding how those platforms work. And then simple content generated in store. Okay. And then when I talk about simple content generating in store, you'd be surprised when we talk about creating content and putting it on social media. A lot of times you might see, oh, okay, my vendor, X vendor, it provides me social assets. I'll post them on our social media page, or I'll post some jewelry that we've got off the website. And that's not really thinking about what you're using each social media channel for. And we could, of course, go down a whole conversation about what social media channels are used for. But just to give you an example, Facebook's a good place where you can pretty much communicate to anybody at any age range, and you can post all kinds of content, right? Whereas Instagram is more of a personal portfolio, right? Of if you look at the people that use Instagram, and businesses should do it that way. So, how do you create your own personal store brand online? That's directly involved in the type of content you post. You typically don't want to post on Instagram jewelry with white backgrounds, the standard stuff that you see everywhere else. It's more lifestyle. So how do you get that lifestyle? Well, sometimes your vendors send you that lifestyle. But if you really want to be a little bit more connected to your community, how about posting some lifestyle that people see around your community themselves and they can identify with? So when we start talking about creating content, we start talking about identifying people in the store that can create content. And by the way, it doesn't have to be just a salesperson, right? There's a lot of people that are doing other roles in the job that have these types of abilities too. So let's talk about the interview process. So because millennials are becoming an ever-growing sort of cornerstone to the workforce, it's important to really change how you interview people. And again, it doesn't have to be just salespeople, but how you interview people so that you can discover these sort of intangible assets that they bring to your business, right? And so when you're speaking to someone during the interview process and they're trying to be a salesperson, or maybe they're interviewing for another role in the company, ask them about things that may not be traditionally asked. What do you do for free time? Do you have experience in social media? All these things are added value. So if you're coming up with a salesperson, you got two rock star salespeople that you have to choose from, and one has a big tilt towards also knowing how to do social media or photography or taking video. That becomes a more valuable candidate, because that person can start to generate that type of content in store that you'll be able to use. Okay, so now let's sort of define this role a little bit. I think when you're hiring someone, it's always important for them to understand the roles. A salesperson may not be accustomed to this concept of, hey, we also want you to create content, right? This goes back to what I was talking about earlier: graphic designer, social coordinator, and then we build that into a single role. Well, what's the definitive roles that new combined role has, right? And so, in our case, it built excitement. And so this should be an exciting thing for someone that you're interviewing, and saying what we're really looking for is a person who's a rock star salesperson, but also has these other traits, right? So you can kind of pick that out, right? And so it's sometimes helpful to sort of give them a title or a role in that regard. And so we call it the content curator, right? And so basically, again, their main job is a salesperson, right? But they're also the content curator for the store. So people know who to go to, right? Because the content curator is really the in-store person who leads the charge to collect and cultivate original content. So they don't have to create all that content on their own. As I mentioned, a lot of people in the store may or may not have these talents: video, photography. And so when you think about all these people having these talents that you may or may not know about, it's good to ask, by the way, if they're already employed with you, is to ask them if they have these traits. And that way the content curator can say, okay, guys, here's what we want to do. We're going to produce content in-house. And what type of content are we going to produce? Well, so there's all types of content you can produce. In store, you could do something as simple as holding a camera up to your hand and showing off a ring for 20 seconds. You don't even need to say anything. That just being able to turn and twist the camera and show off different sides of the ring and use that instead of static imagery on social media. We already know.
Shane, I just want to throw in that this is such a great idea because everybody has somebody in their store or is about to hire them through your suggestions that would love to help to create this kind of unique content. And what we miss is that everybody always talks about how our store is very unique, very special. We give great customer service, attention to detail. This is the chance to show total uniqueness about your message on a continuous basis and set yourself apart all the time. So phenomenal idea, Shane.
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing about it is, again, there's all different types of stores. So some stores work with an agency, some stores are doing it on their own, and so in any event, having original content is super important. But even if you work with an agency, and like we said, digital media is extremely complex, right? We don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But my point being is that really the functionality of digital media, the media buying, the placement, the management, that's a key role for professionals, not necessarily an agency, but other people who are professionals in that regard, right? That know how to do that. But even agencies, even though we create a lot of content for our jewelers, original content, right? We certainly for promotions and other types of things, we do for Valentine's Day, we'll create special mailers or we'll create special content posts for that and for the holidays and Mother's Day and throughout the year and business card design, all this kind of stuff. And that's all great and it's all needed. But when you start really working the back end of social media like Instagram, having custom content, even if you work with a jeweler that's in your local, or I'm sorry, even if you work with a agency in your local market, you're not going to call them, 3 times a week to come into your store and take a quick little video of this because you'll have to pay them for that. And that can be extremely expensive. You don't need expensive equipment to do this type of stuff. An iPhone is amazing with good lighting that you can create a ton of content for social media. So the content curator, their charge, again, is the central figure where, if Nancy's going out to a restaurant, she can take a photo of, holding a wine glass, she's got a ring on, and the local restaurant's menu is in the background, right? She takes a photo of that, and people identify with that local restaurant, and that creates custom content. And we're going to show you some examples of that stuff that you just can't get without doing it on your own, without having people take those photos. And you don't have to have an elaborate setup to do this kind of stuff. And then what the content curator can do is they can collect all this information and all these photos and videos and provide it to whoever's managing their social media or other digital marketing. And those people can go through that information, through all those videos and through all those photos. You may not use all that stuff, but then they can select, oh, this would be great for this. And then, if you're working with an agency, they may go, this is great because of this, and I can use this for this. And now you've got a piece of content that they're using for something else, or it sparks another idea. So a lot of usage from that content. And we've seen notable improvement in marketing campaigns, notable improvement from our clients that have designated someone the content curator. So that's what that person does.
I've put together for you, if you'd like me to use it, a quick poll for the audience, interactive, asking them, do you have such a content creation expert on staff now, yes or no? Would you like me to run it?
Sure.
Now, let's see if it works. Hopefully everybody sees it. You're getting a quick response. Good.
Oh, this is great. Yeah. Perfect.
Very interesting.
So almost 50-50. Bouncing around. All right, now we got the nose leading the charge. So it looks like a majority of you don't, but a pretty good part of you do. So we're at 40% with yes. So that's great. So almost 50-50, not quite. So great. So let's look at some of this right now, right? So when we start talking about creating content, what do we mean? Well, here's an example. This is Mann's Jewelers, right? So they obviously have this car that they're well known for, and they pulled it up against a I don't know how you say that, Savoia, but this pastry shop in their local community. Now, if I had to guess, I'd say this pastry shop is top 10, right? This is a place that everybody goes. Everybody loves their pastries. And Mann's Jewelers is now creating content that is local. And it's not the same kind of stuff that you see, that national brands will send you that's generic. It's creating a more sense of community. So for something like this, using it on their Instagram page, what do? They create an Instagram page that's entirely built up of local representation. So, oh yeah, so-and-so jewelers, they're in, oh yeah, I know that place. I know this place too. So people that love this pastry shop now have a solid feeling about Mann's Jewelers, right? I love that pastry shop. You probably will love Mann's Jewelers. I mean, so it's a way to bring in reputations and landmarks and things from the neighborhood. A photo like this taken on an iPhone is all you need. That's what Instagram is, right? Most people aren't doing big professional shoots. They're taking their shots on an iPhone and they're posting, or some other type of smartphone, and they're posting it on Instagram. So this is a good example of creating that kind of content. This is another one too. So for example, this is something that's done for National Bourbon Day, right? So if it's National Bourbon Day now, so let's just put this in perspective. I think it's important to remember how you can think and how your salespeople can think about creating content, right? There's a national day for something almost every day. So if it's National Nurses Day, National Teachers Day, National Ice Cream Day, there's all kinds of things that can spark your ability to grow and create some content. In this case, just simply go to a local brewery and get yourself a bourbon and take a picture and put it on Instagram celebrating National Bourbon Day, right? And of course, they're wearing men's jewelry from Uno to 50 and posting on a social media channel. That's perfect. That's lifestyle. It's connecting with something that's obviously timely. And also keep in mind, like, for example, this particular retailer has an affluent clientele, right? So they're a Rolex dealer. So this makes sense. And if you break out who your customers are, then that will also show you the type of content they'll appreciate, right? Looking at someone who is a Rolex buyer and an affluent person, they tend to appreciate things like bourbon, right? And so this makes good sense to post. So you don't want to just go willy-nilly. You got to think about who your customers are. So if you live in a small town in Ohio, like I grew up in, a big farming community where I was born, right? So so things might be a little different for that community. If my main customer base are farmers or people related to that type of blue collar, Americana kind of town, right? It's different, and so I can have messages that they identify with. So that's generating that type of content. But let's not also forget about, in doing so, let's talk about photography a little bit more in terms of not just creating content for social media or lifestyle photos, but creating products on your website. So in a lot of cases, thank God today, it wasn't necessarily the case 7-8 years ago. But most brands manufacturers have quality photos of their products. And so you should always use those when you can. I mean, they're done, they're professionally shot on white backgrounds, they look great, super. But if you happen to be a custom jeweler, or in some cases, some of y'all might just sell your own jewelry, you have to take photos. Now you can hire in somebody, a professional, to take photos, but more than likely, you're going to be creating jewelry or have new inventory pretty frequently. So the idea of hiring in someone to a professional photographer to take photo shoots all day, it's quite expensive. So you have to look for alternatives to doing that. Now there's a lot of light boxes in the industry that are great to use and all these kinds of things. But you can get a light box, and maybe a lot of you can agree with this. You can get a light box and you can see the end result of this light box and it's beautiful. But the result that you get is like a bluish background. It's not in super great focus, and it's not what you saw, at the show, right? And a lot of that has to do with the aptitude to run the light box. Just because you flip a switch on a light box and click a camera doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get great photography. In many cases, they try to make it as easy as they can. But now someone who has a photography background or has and by photography background, I don't mean professional experience. I mean, they understand lighting. They know how to take photos, right? They know how to adjust lighting. They know where the lighting should be in terms of the back or the front, or how illuminated should be illuminated from the very front of the product or the side of the product. How do you cast the shadows? All these kinds of things. Those people can be extremely helpful as well. And so again, if you're looking at someone who's got a lot of photography experience, I mean, look, as a salesperson, I always say that your website is your number one salesperson. So if your website is the number one salesperson, it's a sales tool. And for a jewelry salesperson, they should care about what the website looks like. And I think COVID has probably shown most of us that it's now time to really kick up our game online. That trend's already been happening before COVID, but more than ever, what people are doing is they're shopping online first. They shop online, they make decisions to come into the store, and at that point, it's about the sales process, and it's that, do they have a good experience? Do they build a relationship? So we're talking about website and shooting products. If the person's shopping online and you have bad photos online, that's contributing to, remember, that consideration part of the sales pie, that consideration part. If they have a bad experience online, it's the same thing. And so we want to make sure that we have great photos. And so this is something that someone with a photography background would be great at to be able to do, and have your products online look really, really sharp and crisp. So when we start talking about creating content, there's another aspect of it, and that's video, right? So we want to talk a little bit about video creation. So video typically shows better user engagement on social channels, right? It also tends to have better costs per engagement when doing social advertising. People love video. And most of you, if any of you are on social media, I'm sure you've noticed in the past 3 to 4 years that there's much more video being shown, and you watch the video. Video is more engaging. If you think it's interesting, you'll tend to watch it. People are doing a lot of that versus just looking at a static picture and saying something cute about it, right? So that's kind of played out, right? Not that there's still not value in having strategic, static posts, but nonetheless, video is a big trend. Again, I go back to TikTok, right? TikTok's important. I mean, you got Instagram with IGTV. So there's all kinds of things out there that's encouraging video usage now. So from a social perspective, and there's TikTok, and there's others out. We don't recommend TikTok, by the way, as a social channel for jewelers. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I just bring it up because TikTok is a pure play video channel, right? So if you look at the types of content that are typically used that you can create, Facebook promoted posts, right? So someone shoots, and I mentioned this earlier, someone takes a photo in store of them wearing a ring, maybe it's 20 seconds, and they say, look what we just got in from Marco Bichigo, et cetera, et cetera. This is what they give a description in. Come in and check it, won't last. You put it on your social media page, and you could promote that using Facebook advertising, right? So most jewelers should, and at least jewelers that we work with, we have specific campaigns that they run for continuously for social media, right? Frequency, reach, all that kind of thing. And so we may use that as part of a fashion post, right? So if we're pushing fashion lines, we may have a fashion campaign that's running, and we'll flip that out and we'll show that video, and you'll get a lot of different reactions. Then we can compare the type of content that works better, and then you could take more of that type of content. So video, of course, has been translating very well in terms of user engagement. There's also Facebook Live. I think a lot of people fail to use this. This is another, if you have a salesperson that has an experience in this, let's say you're having a sales event, perfect. This is a perfect time for a salesperson with that aptitude to be able to do a Facebook Live. And for those of you who don't know, Facebook Live, you can just use your cell phone. You can go live and say, "Hey, this is Shane. We're live at the one sale here at so-and-so Jewelers," and you can pan the store and show all the people. We're here till 4 o'clock today, up to 70% off, whatever the sale is, and you can promote that. So, equipment wise, you don't need anything other than an outstretched hand, but you may want to get a camera holder so they can hold the bar and they can talk and they can get a good look. You can get that for under $20, right? So you've got this ability to communicate with people live, and you can live stream as long as you want, right? So you could keep talking about it, and that pushes up. Live streams tend to get a preference on social media, especially people that are following your store. So Facebook Live, real easy to do. Just point, shoot, and talk. So salespeople should be engaging that way, especially if they're salespeople, as we mentioned earlier, who use their social media channels to communicate to their customers. So if I'm Shane O'Neill, sales manager at so-and-so jewelry store, okay, and I have a lot of people on my social channel that are actual customers of mine, and I start going live and I do a half-hour segment on live, my people are more likely to see that and they're customers, so they come in for the sale, right? So Facebook Live, really great thing to do. The other thing is Instagram, IGTV.
Shane, there are a couple of questions for you. If you want me to read them, let me know.
Yeah, great, yeah.
Okay. First one comes from Evan Brun. He's saying, can you elaborate on why TikTok isn't recommended for the jewelry industry?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of reasons. One is the ability for us to identify advertising details about the user base. So I don't want to get too far down the road because we're going to be going into relevancy. But there's that. So the ad platform itself. There's obviously a lot of people are talking about the security risk of TikTok. That's been in the news. So that's a thing. I don't know how severe or not that security risk it was. A few months ago, there was the chance of TikTok getting pulled from US users. So I don't know if that's still something that's a possibility, but it's something you have to be aware of. You don't want to put a lot of time and effort in a social channel that goes away. And then there's a lot of others, which we look at as an agency, which is the user base, right? And there's a number of things that we evaluate. So I could go into a half an hour spiel about why we don't recommend TikTok, but generally speaking, we look at TikTok is the hot trend right now. That's what everybody's talking about. But the truth of the matter is the users on TikTok are less accustomed and less appreciative of advertising than on some more well-vetted channels, right? Again, you can make the argument that just about any social channel is relevant, right? You could be super big on Twitter and believe that Twitter is the best social media for you to use in your store. And if you use Twitter and you're a master of Twitter, maybe that's true. But for most jewelers, there's going to be a better opportunity elsewhere because of ad platforms, user base, frequency and reach of advertising that you can get on these different channels. So all that stuff has to go in. But generally speaking,
Abraham did follow up by saying, Abraham Neve said, we've done about 30 sales through TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, so my guess is that you know how to use TikTok well. My guess is that you can generate TikTok. So we'll always hear that stories. And so as an agency, we have to assess, is there someone who can manage TikTok? The point of it is that there's a couple things with social media that you have to look at. So you have to look at a formula, right? And this is how we look at it, because almost all social media, especially if you're going to advertise, takes dollars. You have to put dollars towards it. So when we look at social media channels, three things that we look to evaluate. One is time. How much time does it take to use the channel? For TikTok, you have to create engaging user video, and TikTok has a unique, different style and flavor to it, right? So you have to create that video. You have to have the aptitude to create that video. You have the creativity to create that video, etc. So how much time does it take you to create a post? Put it up, right? Time. Number two, if you're looking at social media, is what's the audience? So how big is the audience that you're trying to reach on a local level? For example, back, I don't know when it was, 2012, maybe 2013, when Google Plus came out. I might be a couple years off either way. But when Google Plus came out, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, Google Plus is coming out. It's going to be a Facebook killer. We have to jump on Google Plus. Well, they didn't have a local audience, so we didn't adapt to Google Plus. We didn't put any time and effort into that either. And of course, we all know what happened to Google Plus. It eventually went away. And so even Apple tried to create a social channel. So just because a social channel exists doesn't mean you should use it. So you really have to look at first of all, what's your budget? Anybody should be budgeting. And if you're looking at your budget and you look at social channels that are available to you, you have to look. And the truth of the matter is the big three, regardless of what people may read or otherwise, is still Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Those are the big three opportunities that we've identified. Again, you always find people that really know how to work other platforms, and they're just huge fans of this and really great at working that platform. But you can't do all social media channels and do them well. So whatever your social channel preference is, make sure that you select the social channels that you can do, that you have the time to put into, and that you can do great, right? If you want to use TikTok, use TikTok, but make sure you're great at TikTok, and make sure that you've got better reach and all the other attributes that you look for from a marketing standpoint is represented on TikTok. If you're not going to do something like Instagram or Facebook or even YouTube, right? So it just depends on what your flavor is. I mean, we kind of got off on a tangent there, but that's kind of how we look at it. What was the other question, Howard?
Now you got both the questions, but I know we've seen on Facebook Live local retailers successfully promoting sales and events to the point where they were running transactional right from Facebook Live. People, saying they want something, buying, etc. Be curious how you feel about that and how to do it.
Yeah, we just talked about Facebook Live as younger generation gets older, they're much more comfortable doing transactions online. That's why e-commerce is growing in part, right? Younger people have been doing, the people that are in high school today, by the time they're in their 30s and 40s, I can only imagine, right? Look, I'm 50, right? And I'm a huge tech fan. So it doesn't necessarily, age is just not necessarily a determining factor, but generally speaking, the younger you are, the more of the population is accustomed to it. I personally love buying stuff online, right? I prefer not to go into a store 9 times out of 10. So I think that's important note. So as people become more comfortable, like I said, a good salesperson will use Facebook Live. They may Facebook Live and have people comment below, and what are you looking for? Hey, they may do a Facebook Live and say, hey, look, here's with sale, what's going on. If there's something that you're looking for, let me know in the comments below. I'll text you back. And then when the Facebook's Live done, they text them back, they make a transaction. I mean, those things don't happen as frequently as sometimes it's made seem, but it does happen. And in any event, even if they don't do a transaction right there and there, they're more apt to come into the store. They may not be aware of the sale going on. So Facebook Live is a great tool.
Cool.
Sorry we went off the road a little bit, but we could be here all day talking about some of the nuances of all this stuff, and I tend to bloviate. So, but in any event, so I was talking about Instagram IGTV. So another thing I think that's important to know. Look, video is typically something that scares a lot of retailers away, because they instantly think I have to hire a videographer to come in and take, it's going to be super expensive. Well, not in today's age. Maybe in 2002, it was because you didn't have the equipment other than maybe a handy cam, but the software to do anything, all that stuff's kind of changed now. And things like the iPhone, which have amazing quality video that's perfectly fine to use for YouTube or any video that you shoot. Again, if you've got someone with experience with lighting and understands the concept of shooting video, that's invaluable. That's invaluable to have because you can create video. And once you create video, you can use it across many platforms, right? We were talking about TikTok. If TikTok's your thing and you've determined that that is a core channel for you, again, it's not going to be for most retailers, but if you're someone that knows how to use that channel, great, because then you can shoot video, you can do all these different types of things that you can promote on TikTok. You have a strategy. Great. But you can also then use a lot of those videos elsewhere or shoot different type of videos for other channels like IGTV. So Instagram, you've got the lifestyle photos we're all familiar with. IGTV is sort of like the video content, right? So if you have informational videos and things like that, you could put it on IGTV. And if you're shooting that video, let's say it's how to buy a diamond, right? You can also put that on your YouTube channel, right? And that's another opportunity for a lot of retailers is to build out your YouTube channel. And the reason I say that is most retailers are not building out or maintaining their YouTube channel hardly at all. And so on a local level, YouTube is, in my view, a big growing opportunity. We know YouTube reaches more 18 to 49-year-olds than any cable network. So I'll let that kind of speak for itself. There's a lot of facts that you can look about YouTube, people consuming content. There's all types of content on there. People watch video-based podcasts. They watch comedy skits. They watch shows. So there's all types of stuff that people consume on YouTube. And the millennials, especially younger millennials, consume a ton of YouTube. But my point being is that once you create video, informational video, like how to buy a diamond or the custom design process, and you put that video on YouTube, now you're building up your YouTube channel, but you can use that same video across other platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, IGTV. You can use it on your website. So you're getting a lot of usage out of creating video for one channel that you strategically use for others as well. So creating video is very important. And by the way, you can get basic equipment, and I'm talking some basic lighting stands, like we've all seen the lighting stands that photographers use, right? You can get basic lighting stands, a basic camera rig that your phone will slip in, and a tripod, and a couple other things that you need to shoot video for under 150 bucks on Amazon. Right, get good lighting, get a good stand so you have a stable environment for your camera. There's so a little due diligence, and you'll find all that stuff that you need. And if someone has a propensity for video, that you're interviewing or already on staff, they'll know what to look for. All right, and then also want to talk about others. It's not just the creative part about creating video, creating products, but also it's not uncommon for college students, especially college students that are graduating now, but more importantly, in the past 10 years, it's not uncommon for college students to be introduced to some level of website HTML code, website design, something of that nature. It's not uncommon for them to be exposed to it. In fact, there's a number of schools that teach coding in high school. So it's not uncommon to find someone who's tech savvy, who may have, for example, a personal blog. And if you're hiring for a salesperson, you're unlikely probably to ask if they have what they do in their free time, right? Oh, I blog. Oh, you blog. Tell me more about your blogging. Well, I set up a website called so-and-so. Oh, you set up the web. Now you have a conversation about what are you using? Oh, we're using WordPress. Oh, our site's on WordPress or whatever it may be, right? And now you have another skill set that you're talking to this employee or this interviewee about that is going to bring a lot of value to your store. So website inventory management is important because you have to upkeep that stuff. The biggest challenge, and I talk about the website as your number one sales tool, but the biggest challenge that we have is maintaining websites. It's still something that I think people think that you can keep it up well enough and things will move along and we'll get people in. But the more you finesse that website, the better it is. One of the biggest challenges for almost all retailers is getting current actual inventory with accurate prices on their website. So we want to talk about doing that type of thing, right? So how do you do it? Well, so any solution to get product on your site is going to require work, right? There are plenty of web service providers that provide great experiences, great visual representations of websites, provide great solutions for people that may otherwise not have the ability to do so by bringing in jewelry products from vendors, right? So they have vendor cloud, that they can bring into the website, and that's fine and well to show inventory, right? So that solution's done. Hey, I can sign up with so-and-so jeweler or so-and-so web company. I can select the vendors that I want to bring in to my store, and that gives you a great opportunity to show the products that you have. In most cases, I believe you can change your pricing, make sure the pricing is accurate, or you can put your markup to the manufacturer's retail pricing, etc. So now you have products online. But now when you want to, but a lot of times those are dependent on the vendors create or make sure their products that are on that cloud are updated, and sometimes they're not. And so that becomes a problem too when you want to move into e-commerce. If you're not selling online, it doesn't matter because they have to come into the store anyway. So you're just saying, hey, I have access to all these products. Look at all the stuff we've got. And a lot of jewelers do that. But when you start talking about really wanting to push the e-commerce initiative, which everybody should be doing, how do you get inventory on your site is important. So a couple ways you can do that, right? So you can connect your point of sale system to your website, and that's fine. That way you're connecting your POS, and that is probably the best way to do it. But even something like that does require work. In most cases, your POS system doesn't have quality images. So you either need to get them from your vendors, and someone's got to do that. You got to take photography if it's your own stock. Most of them don't have descriptions. What I would consider consumer-facing descriptions and titles, right? So someone's got to write those kinds of things, and that's an laborious task, right? You have to, and that takes a lot of time to do. But that there is no way around it. You have to be able to put in the work to get the results. And but once you have that synced and you get a process with your POS system, now you have accurate products on your site. Pricing is correct. E-commerce, then you figure out the e-commerce path, right? And you're good to go, right? And so it's just maintaining it. And there's inevitably hiccups with doing something like that too. Tech doesn't always run smoothly, but it's a great solution. Now, if you don't have that opportunity to connect your POS system, there's always you can manage product manually. Now, it's not the preferred way to do it, but I do have retailers that manage their products on their own, and they have people in store who are salespeople or otherwise in the store, but part of their job is to maintain the site, get the products from the vendors or take the photos, and upload the product to the site, put in the pricing, put in the attributes, put in all the data, and manage that. And also then when something sells, to cross-reference that, remove it from the site, etc. I mean, it's a new way to approach your business, because your website is really part of your store. It'd be like having a case that you never clean and you never put the jewelry away and you just let it sit there. Meanwhile, you're cleaning all the other cases and putting the jewelry away and getting new cases when they get scratched up and dung. That's the disconnect that a lot of people have with their website. But the website should be a living, breathing thing. You got to maintain it. And I think it's time that we start to transition into that being part of the understood tasks that have to be done to be a successful retailer. So you have to look for a solution that works best for you. But again, e-commerce is an important part of what you do on a daily basis. Again, people research online first, and then they come in the store. Not that there's never people that come in with foot traffic, but a majority of people are doing a lot of research online, as we saw through COVID, and they come into the store as well. And we saw that especially after stores reopened, if they were shut down, where especially bridal saw a big increase in bridal after stores reopened, because that bridal consumer never went anywhere. They just spent more time on your site, right? So inventory management is important. The other thing is making basic changes to your website, right? So such as changing images or changing store hours or copy, that kind of thing. Super easy to do if you know how to use the CMS system, right? The content management system. If you know how to use that, super easy to do. However, if you have to use a third party to make these changes, it can take longer than what you'd like, right? So, when you need a photo changed, you got to send the photo to the third party, and say, hey, can you put this on the about page and replace the image that's currently, in this area or this section, and replace it with this one. And so you have to put a support ticket in many cases. That support ticket goes through, it gets put in a queue, and it could take, I've seen people take up to 2 weeks to do a simple change like that. More than likely, you're wanting that change to happen rather quickly. But they got other support tickets they got to do, so they have to do things in order, and so it can take a while. But it's easy to do, especially if you have someone who has a technical understanding, an experience with backends of websites. I mean, once you know one, once you know one CMS system, even though they're all different, a lot of functionality might be familiar, so you can get to know other CMS systems as well. But once you have the aptitude to do that kind of thing, that's a very valuable to have in store, because they can make those simple tasks really quick and easy. You don't have to send, but by the time you send an email and attach the photo, you could have changed copy on a website, right? So it just streamlines everything they're trying to do in store. So that's another that's another attribute to have from someone in store that can do those types of things and make those changes. And then one final note, and we'll be off here. And one final note, typically individuals with these kind of attributes that we've discussed today have another valuable trait, and that's creativity. Right? We talk about video, photography, all these things. Creativity is the core to all of those, right? And that's a trait that will help with all different aspects of your business. For example, if you're going to have a sale, if you're not working with an agency who's sort of doing those creative brainstorms for you, these type of people can give you ideas about the concept for the sale, or how the creative aspects of the sale, how you promote it, how you market it, etc. They also have creative ways to communicate your store, or the ability to have creative ideas or things that connect with their age group or their age range, right? If they're the bridal age, right? How do you connect to them? And what type of content are they interested in? And they can be creative in that. So creativity is another side that is important to all these people that you're looking for when you're interviewing. So thank you for joining. I know I went over by about 4 minutes, but happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, drop your questions in the chat, and Shane will answer them right away. A lot of fantastic content there, Shane. A lot of great ideas. Thank you so much for a well-prepared, professional, and fascinating presentation as always. Anybody have a question or two for Shane? He'll be here for a little bit. Please just drop your question in the chat. What I would ask, we got one right here. Cameron O'Neill asking, thank you, Shane. Great topics you covered. Well, that's not a question, but it's a compliment. And it's and Dorothy Vodka.
Good last name. Good last name.
They love you. What maybe you could answer is there an age range for this? You were talking about millennials, or really is it only about the skills?
It's really about the skills. When we're speaking about generalities, right? But generally speaking, the younger you are, the more likely you are to have experience with these types of things. I mean, but again, look, I'm 50 years old, but I don't feel 50 and I don't act 50, and I love tech, right? So I'm really upset that I'm not 25 right now, right? Because so there's a lot of people like me, and I'm a Gen Xer, right? So Gen Xers are sort of the first generation that really started getting a hint of tech, right? And so I'm all about it. I love tech. I love tech everywhere in my house. I love everything about it. So no, there are people that are older that love tech. They just got into it in a different way, or they got into it later. And so I think there's a lot of people that have that, especially since Facebook's been around now for 13, 14 years.
Awesome. Got 2 more questions for you. They're coming in fast now. Abraham said, should we target hiring social media with sales experience, or the other way around?
Well, I think, I think a salesperson is a highly skilled individual, right? So I think when you start talking about, look, when we hire graphic designers who are now going to be social coordinators, we're hiring the graphic designer first and foremost. If they don't have the graphic design skills that are great, then the rest of it's not going to work either, right? If you have a great salesperson and they're personable, they communicate, then that other stuff, that attribute of being personable, being a great salesperson will apply. If they're a bad salesperson, they can do all the tech they want, but their Facebook Lives are going to be lame, right? They're not going to come through as being personable. They're not going to use social media the way you want.
I agree. There's I mean, things like the predictive index can tell you if you have a good salesperson. Rose, could you mute, please? This will tell you if you have a good salesperson, or maybe other methods, and then hire according to the skills above and beyond. Now you also have Rachel has been loved the content and is asking, would you suggest hiring full-time or part-time? A lot of salespeople are part-time.
Yeah, I mean, look, every store is different, so it depends on what you're hiring for. I think if you're hiring if your goal is to hire a part-time salesperson, then they're probably not going to really have the time to do these ancillary things. So maybe if you don't have anyone else to do it, and you're just like, oh, there's a lot of, and if we could find someone that has all these other abilities, and that pushes you to hire someone full-time versus part-time, a couple things happen. One, you're less likely to lose that salesperson because you're providing them a full-time job, unless they want a part-time job, right? But a lot of part-time jobbers, people with part-time jobs, unless they prefer that, would probably rather have full-time. So less turnover, right? We found that ourselves. We've had much less turnover in terms of social media coordinators since we combined them with graphic designers. So I think there's something to be said about someone who is part of the sales team, not as a part-time. But again, it just depends on what your needs are as a store.
Another question from Mary, and she's asking, where can we hire digitally native millennial? Do we post on Indeed or post jobs at college boards? Just, I guess, any kind of a feel for what you think works best.
Well, I mean, first of all, I put it on your website, but you never know who's going to, and I post it on social media, right? You could even advertise your job on social media with a sponsored post, right? And you could target people who have those types of attributes. And if you're working with an agency, they'll know how to do that, right? So there's that. Yeah, I post on Indeed too, and I think Indeed just kind of pull. I don't know if you posted directly to Indeed, but if it just pulls from all the other search engines. But yeah, I'd put that on a job post, and Indeed would be great. Yeah, that's where people are looking for those types of search engines. I think when you start talking about a social, looking for these attributes, I think it's, again, important to remember that, again, you can be looking for any position in the store. It doesn't have to be a salesman. But if you're looking for a salesperson, then it should be salesperson, and then these are going to be bonuses. And because they'll read, I wouldn't put so much emphasis on this, because again, you want a great salesperson, but if they have these attributes, that's a plus. That could be the thing that said for someone saying, I don't know if I'll fit in there as a salesperson, and then they read that and they're like, this is going to be for me. And maybe they like the job flexibility to be able to do other things than just sale. So.
Okay, and Daniela, this is probably going to be the last one we have time for. Daniela says, as a millennial myself, I look at LinkedIn jobs just so you have an idea. And I know that LinkedIn is extremely active.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a job professional, but yeah, LinkedIn, yeah, for sure. That's a good thing to bring up. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn too, and being able to reach out from LinkedIn as well. You can also advertise on LinkedIn too, and they have job boards and too. So people look at a lot of different sources for job postings. So yeah, LinkedIn's very valuable.
Okay, everybody, I think that's going to be a wrap. Shane, do you have a closing comment before I tell everybody where they're going to be able to find your presentation online after the event is over?
Yeah, look, I think it's important as a business. We always find it valuable to sort of have planning, even for ourselves. We do it for our clients, but we do it for ourselves too. What are our goals that we want to achieve year over year? But I also think that it's key for the jewelry industry, which is notoriously behind the times, right? We should have figured out this inventory management a long time ago online, and it should be seamless now, but it's not. And so I think as a store, you have to be able to be progressive and change with the times. And a lot of times it means learning new tech, or at least having someone that can explain the tech to you. I mean, if you're an older store owner, some of this stuff can be overwhelming because it just keeps coming, right? And so unless you're consuming that all the time, you have a hard time designating what platform's better or what platform's not. But you have to, I would suggest everybody remember, you can't do everything and do everything well. Make sure that you're staying consistent. Make sure you read a lot about the industries and the trades. Jewelry Ecomm and some of the other publications in the jewelry industry help get that voice out. Myself and others talk about it a lot, and it'll help you stay above the edge. And I think when you start doing that, you'll start connecting with more consumers, and you'll be able to increase sales through a strategic plan year over year.